Hi, we're Us Professoras. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Gabby, and today we are going to talk about how to write effective business emails.
So right now we are in a period, a lot of people are working from home, a lot of people are going to the office, but not as frequently. And so people are relying on emails a little bit more. So let's take a look at a couple of tips and some examples of phrases that you can use so that your message is communicated properly.
So the topic number one, sometimes it might be better to pick up the phone.
Yeah, think about what you're trying to send, and if you think it's better or if it's quicker, if you need the response faster, sometimes it's just easier, pick up and call the person.
Make your emails concise and to the point.
Yeah, we'll get into this a couple examples a little bit later in the next slides, but you definitely need to be very clear and not short, not rude, but you need to get to the point because people are reading many more emails and we're trying to interact in a different way nowadays. So making them very clear and concise is probably the best way to go about it.
Okay. Only send them to the people who really need to see them, and be clear about what you'd like to recipient to do next.
Yeah, so I hate receiving emails that it's not necessary for me to receive. I'm sure you receive them too, Gabby. Like you get them, you're like, why did I get this?
Normally I don't answer, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah,
I don't have anything to answer because it wasn't for me, so.
Exactly. And so just, don't CC everyone, like copy everybody just send it to the person that you need to send it to. If other people need to be informed, but then also make it very clear what the person receiving it has to do, or what the next action steps are, or what you're going to do, because just kind of sending it out into the world is the worst. I hate receiving those emails.
Yeah. And sometimes you regret, because you had sent to the wrong person.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. So remember that your emails are a reflection of your professionalism, values, and attention to detail.
Yeah, you need to really proofread what you send out. I know sometimes it's just sending a quick one, it might be to a colleague, but making it clear, because you never know when someone's going to have to refer back to it, or when someone's going to need to use it to follow up, and they potentially might have to send it to other people, bosses, and things like that. So put some good phrases in there. Don't be, chatting. Remember that you're a business professional, and make sure that
don't use slangs,
Yeah, and there's not a lot of mistakes in it, and yeah, just put appropriate things in it, because sometimes people start talking, but they'll talk about something important, but then also like, oh, how was your weekend? I went to that's it. No, call the person, send them a text message or something, but in the emails, just keep it very, this is what I need, this is what it is, because you never know who needs to read it afterwards.
Okay. So try to imagine how others might interpret the tone of your message, be polite, and always proofread what you have written before you click send.
Yeah, sometimes you sound a little bit more rude than necessary. And so it's, you just kind of read it, and if you receive that email, think about the different interpretations of how you wrote something, because sometimes people are like, wow, that was really rude, that was unnecessary, or that was aggressive, and it wasn't intentional. You weren't trying to be that way. So just kind of read through it and make sure everything's nice and polite and relatively neutral.
Yeah, I think if you are in a bad mood, it's not a good idea writing emails.
Right, exactly. Or if you need to write an email and you've got some bad emotions, or you're angry about something, you're frustrated, try to use as neutral a tone as possible, so it just can't be interpreted in a bad way, because maybe the person has nothing to do with the situation that just happened with you. So
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so number one, so the subject line should be clear and specific.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to send an email, and we get hundreds of emails every day, at least put something that is kind of clear and it's like identifiable. So if you have a meeting, for example, well, we have hundreds of meetings. So who knows which meeting you're referring to? So the good example there, like sales budget meeting for leadership, you can put the day, the time. So then when people kind of scroll through, they're like, oh, it's this one. You know exactly what they're talking about. Instead of just like, hey, meeting. Which one?
Okay.
Yeah.
So use clear and to the point language to communicate.
Right. So Brazilian Portuguese speakers usually have a problem with this because they put a lot of commas, and then it's just like this huge long, it's a whole paragraph and it's one sentence.
Yeah.
And it's very confusing. So what I try to tell people is like one idea, one sentence, especially in emails, because it's, you know, you're trying to communicate something, so you want it to be super clear. We've got a couple examples here, and we'll put the text, or you can pause the video. We'll put the text below so you can read them calmly. But try not to use like, so, então, then, it's super confusing. It gets too confusing for a person to try and understand it. So take a look at the two examples that we put here, and you can look at the difference, and you can obviously say, oh, this one is much easier to understand. And, you know, if you need to put bullet points or number things, like we need to do this by next week, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's like super, super clear that the person knows what's happening.
So we have be polite and use the right tone.
Yeah, again, you never know how someone is going to interpret. And so we wanted to put some examples for you. So yeah, ASAP is, for example, at the end of the bad example, it says ASAP, send it to me ASAP. That can be interpreted in many different ways. And the person might be like, wow, like that was really rude, or that was super aggressive, really intense, you know, and you just don't necessarily want it to be like that. So in our good example, we use different phrasing there. So you can see, could you please send it to me by 5 p.m., blah, 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 or something like that. So it's just a little more polite, and it's harder for the person to interpret it in the way that you're not wanting them to interpret it.
Okay.
So yeah, that's it. That's our email tips. So business emails, make sure that you're writing them clearly, thinking about the tone. Don't write things that are too long, and
be
if you need more, just try to be a little bit more professional.
Yes.
And we'll try to post a few more tips on our social media. So check out our social media pages, and we'll give you some phrases for business English, especially for your emails. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. See you guys soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.